Aloha, and welcome to Feast, Dish, and Dialogue, a podcast presented by the Hawaii Ag and Culinary Alliance, sharing conversations from the Feast Summit at the annual Hawaii Food and Wine Festival. Here, leaders across food, education, agriculture, sustainability, and tourism come together to explore the future of food systems and hospitality, and how culinary sits at the center of the visitor experience in Hawaii and beyond. In this Feast Dialogue episode, we bring you a dynamic panel, Staffed for Success, shaping the next generation of culinary and hospitality professionals, recorded live at the Feast Summit. Moderated by Young Yoon, Executive Director of Ment'or, and featuring panelists Wendy Hensel, Kelly Sanders, Craig Anderson, and Mike Palmer, this conversation brings together hoteliers, educators, and workforce leaders to explore how the industry is rethinking recruitment, training, and mentorship to prepare the next generation for long-term success. Pull up a seat and join the dialogue.
I'm truly honored to be here to moderate this amazing panel, Staff for Success, Shaping the Next Generation of Culinary and Hospitality Professionals. So I want to introduce this amazing panel. You're all in for a treat. Sorry, I had to stick in a Halloween, since it's Halloween, a little corny thing. First, we have Wendy Hensel, Wendy serves as the president of the University of Hawaii. She's a trailblazer in higher education leadership and previously served as the dean of the College of Law and later provost at Georgia State University. And she also was the executive vice chancellor at the City University of New York, which is where I'm from. She's now working to create a strategy that partners industry with academic programming to better prepare students in the workforce. Welcome, Wendy. Next, we have Kelly Sanders. Kelly is president, and you have some fans. He's president in Hawaii of Highgate Hotels, overseeing one of the largest hotel portfolios in Hawaii. With decades of hands-on experience in hotel operations, Kelly has seen firsthand the challenges of building and sustaining a workforce in such a competitive marketplace. Welcome, Kelly. Sitting next to Kelly, we have Craig Anderson. Craig is vice president. I love it, all these fans. Craig is vice president of operations at Mauna Kia Resort with a career that started at the Culinary Institute of America. So nice to have an alum. So he started working in kitchens, but he has risen through the ranks to senior leadership, embodying how culinary education can lead to long-term success and management careers. So welcome, Craig. And last, we have Mike Palmer. Mike is the managing partner at I hope I'm going to pronounce it correctly, Ho'okipa. Yay! Partners LLC, and he also serves as the chairman of the Hawaii Restaurant Association, so just a small role. With deep experience in restaurant management and business strategy, he provides leadership and strategic direction to one of the state's most influential hospitality organizations. So welcome to Mike. Okay. So first question to Wendy. You've broken ground as a leader in higher education and now serve as the second female of the University of Hawaii. How do you feel like your experiences help shape and lead your leadership style and the way you approach students for today's workforce?
Yeah, so I really enjoyed listening to the keynote because it's true. The experience that students coming in are wanting and engaging with is very different than it has been in the past. And so I think I was actually trained in a very innovative environment for universities about asking the question, how do we continually get better? How do we continually improve in order to serve the students at the center of our mission? So that kind of training, I think, bringing that eye here to the very special place of Hawaii and the magic that happens here hopefully will help us get to a future place where we are very responsive, not only for the students and faculty, but more importantly for the state.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Wendy. Next, we'll move to Kelly. So you've risen through the ranks in, you've risen through the ranks in hotel operations. I don't have my glasses. I should have put them on. To now oversee one of Hawaii's largest hotel operations or hospitality portfolios. Looking back, what was one of the toughest challenges that you personally faced in your career, and how did it shape the leader that you are today?
Thank you. And it's great to be here and see everyone. Aloha, my old home. Go back to me 1988 with me, 22 years old, out of college, suddenly thinking I'm the smartest guy in the planet, right, at 22, and end up buying or acquiring 4 restaurants, 3 in Texas, 1 in California, and I lived in Utah. So managing those 4 restaurants was super challenging, and trying to figure out how to understand the restaurant business. For 2 years, working 20-hour days, 7 days a week, trying to make sure that the restaurants were successful and that we could do everything. And then we had the bright idea, I had a partner, and we had the bright idea of, okay, we bought these existing restaurants, they're doing okay, now we've got money in the bank, why don't we open a restaurant in Utah? We live here, so it should be easier. Taking and building that brand and that restaurant completely destroyed everything that we had. And the worst part about that, it was a week before Thanksgiving, and I had to lay off 120 employees because we couldn't make payroll. So the moral of that story for me and what it taught me is we have a responsibility to the people that trust us to come work for us. And what we need to do is find opportunities to continue to help them grow, to make them successful, and to ensure that they become part of something that is bigger than a job and more about a future and more about a path where they can really help you, your organization, but themselves and their families become part of the next generation of great things. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Okay, Craig, you're next. So you started as a CIA graduate working in kitchens and then moved your way up to senior leadership. Can you talk a little bit about your journey and sort of what led you to make the switch and how you've grown and used that for your leadership today?
Sure, thank you for that question. And I'd just like to acknowledge Kelly's costume today. He's dressed as a 30-something successful hotel executive. So my culinary journey actually started as a child laborer on our family farm in Wisconsin, working for my grandmother, pulling weeds and harvesting vegetables and fruits from the garden. And that was my initial inspiration to get into the food business itself. Graduating from CIA, I vividly remember the career day where I was interviewing. They had like a speed dating setup with businesses that came in to interview potential graduates. And I was interviewing with a chef from Four Seasons, and he asked me a question. He was this big, barrel-chested guy, huge grin, furrowed brow, just a really intense guy. And he says, "Tell me how to cook a duck." So it's like, okay. I said, well, I'll probably either braise or confit the leg and then sear the breast, kind of medium rare. He said, "You're hired." So I was like, whew, I passed that. But I ended up working for Joe Cochran at the Four Seasons in San Antonio, Texas. And he was the kind of leader that would gather people around and do demos and demonstrate technique to the staff. And not everybody was there. So whoever was on shift would get the benefit of his teaching. And he was super passionate about it. He would go into fine detail, and whether it was, souffle potatoes or his recipe for gooey duck stew, it just exuded from him this passion that he had, not only for cuisine, but for helping others reach their potential. And then you would see it, other guys in the kitchen would then do their own little mini-me versions of what he had shown them to those that weren't there that day. And it really cemented for me this notion of passing on the knowledge, of helping people reach their potential, because ultimately that's what it's all about in terms of growing a workforce. Later I worked for a guy, Steve Shallett, in Tucson, Arizona, and his adage was, it's not who you know, it's who you grow. And he was a guy who could see in someone a talent that maybe they didn't recognize in themselves, and he would be the guy to tap them on the shoulder and say, hey, have you ever considered doing this? And oftentimes they had never thought about it, but he saw something in them and invited them into a position that ultimately would change their lives. So working for those two guys were really kind of important moments in my career that helped me where I am today.
That's wonderful. I think it's one of the great things about this profession is how people learn, and then how you retain it, and then you use it to influence the next generation. So thank you for that, Greg. Okay, Mike. So as chairman of the Hawaii Restaurant Association, you're guiding one of the most influential culinary and hospitality organizations in the state. How do you handle that in terms of developing the workforce in Hawaii?
Thank you, and aloha. Thank you for having me here today. Yeah, thanks for mentioning that. We're actually very proud this year. The PBN ranked the Hawaii Restaurant Association as the third largest business advocacy organization in the state. And with that comes a huge responsibility in Kuleana to support the industry is obviously one of the big things we do is every way, shape, or form, whether that's donating money to the Lahaina restaurants, over $1 million to help them recover. It's a very small amount, but it's the best, any amount helps, right? So to help current business leaders, owners, restaurateurs in the state by offering resources to help them, for example, with hiring ideas, bouncing ideas off each other. Networking is a huge part of it. Plus, we also have affiliate members, right? All the companies that support the restaurant industry in every way, shape, or form. So just having that huge community of support is one of the huge advantages of being part of the HRA. And we represent all restaurants. We represent over 4,500 restaurants in the state, which is 90,000 employees, if you can believe that. The third largest employee group in the state behind federal and state government. So we take the role very seriously. So besides just supporting the restaurants, the other huge mission is making sure there is a talent pool for future generations to support the industry. Because what are we talking about today? We're talking about staffing, which every restaurant that I know, every hotel, every business, even the police department has a hard time staffing in our island state. So how do we counter that? What do we do? Well, the number one thing, you got to make sure there's a pool available. If there's no pool, then we're all fighting each other for the same employees, which we already do to an extent, as we know. But to do that, we support, and most of the money that we raise goes to the HRA Educational Foundation, which is supporting 16 public high schools in Hawaii through the Pro Start program, which gets talented, young kids interested in culinary. A lot of them have a passion. Thank God they have a passion, and there's kids and there's TV shows now, or they learn it from their parents or whatever it may be. But there is a group of passionate young people that want to learn culinary and restaurant management, and we want to nurture that and support it as much as possible. So by doing that, we provide scholarships to these young individuals, support the teachers and instructors, educators, So then when they graduate, we can ship them off to Hyde Park and Michael, or to Wendy at UH, at the Tim School, and to the KCC Culinary program. So they can then graduate from that, and we have all these talented individuals to work in restaurants.
You're listening to Feast, Dish and Dialogue, conversations from the Feast Summit exploring how food, culture, and hospitality shape the visitor experience in Hawaii and beyond.
So moving back to education, then back to you, Wendy. You've spoken about a vision of integrating sort of the college campuses where community colleges work with four-year universities. Can you explain a little bit about what that initiative is and what it means and how it can help the workforce for specifically Hawaii?
Yeah, I think it's the challenge of having 10 campuses and 5 education centers across multiple islands. And how do you take different population centers and create access that allows the talent pool that you need to rise up and the training in different areas to be differentiated enough so that we're not just replicating the same program over and over again. So it's asking the question, how do we take these pieces and elevate them to scale so that we can operate as a whole far more effectively than we do on the individual campus level? One of the things I get asked a lot from different folks is, well, can you replicate this program that's at this school in this place? And part of the answer is it more economical to differentiate and then pay to have students do in-depth hybrid placements for long periods of time, for a long weekend, over a month or two? So that kind of umbrella, as opposed to program, really allows us to be more effective, more efficient, and to specialize so that there's the whole range of skills and services that are needed by the industry.
Amazing. So have you already started some of this, or it's all in the works?
Oh, no, I think there's already some of that going on, but being much more intentional about it and really asking the question, is this a duplicative program? Is there a reason for that? Or is there a way that we can specialize and add in a whole new talent pool of a specific culinary area, for example? I think we're talking about the vegetables and having places where specialties can arise even in a small populated place.
Fantastic. Okay, so Kelly, moving on to you. So you've spoken about often that hospitality is more than just about jobs. It's about creating careers. What do you think the industry or the profession must do to differentiate and to make hotel roles and restaurant roles more appealing and sustainable for the next generation?
Thank you. Michael, you did a great job in really making me think differently about this answer. Because I was thinking back to what you said in the tenure conversation, that potentially that is going to change. You think about those of you that do interviews and have interviewed people and you review resumes, and you look at someone that, year there, year there, year there, year there, you get these alarm bells, right? That, oh, wow, jump. There's got to be something wrong. Like, potentially could be completely different in 10 years, where that associate or that person has jumped to create more opportunity and learn more. And I think from our perspective, or my perspective at Highgate, we need to do a better job in the beginning when we hire talent to give them at least a minimum of a 2-year kind of path forward. Here's the road today. Here's the potential cross hacks and where you could go and what you could do. But I don't think that we can think beyond that 2-year initially, but we need to do a better job of making sure that the employee today isn't looking for a job 3 months from now, after we've spent a lot of time in the training and development side of trying to get that associate or leader ready for the next move. So I think that's critical, something that we need to really focus on. I also am a big believer that the stretch goal opportunity is so critical for us to really think about giving people a big chance to show their talent, but you have to be there when you do that to always catch them, because you don't want them to get demotivated while you're trying to motivate them to giving them more experience. So.
Fantastic. Okay, so next to Craig, how many students or young chefs do we have in the audience, or young hospitality future leaders? Raise your hand. Okay. Yay!
Good job.
So for these young individuals, what advice would you give about turning a culinary education into something that is a more long-lasting career and that can turn into senior leadership?
Run. How many not-so-young culinary professionals or food and beverage people are in the audience today? Yay. Hopefully you would agree that F&B is hard. There's no TV timeouts, 24/7 often, and the show goes on no matter what happens. 2 people call in sick, the fish delivery doesn't come, there's a fire. I mean, it all happens, right? But ultimately the show goes on. So just being able to roll with the punches and deal with that and know that it's going to happen to you someday, very likely, I think is important. I also think something that Michael touched on was this notion of the business side of the business. And I think oftentimes, like myself, we came into the business on the creative side of culinary, but what really makes a restaurant successful, to Kelly's original point, was does it make any money? And I think the opportunity for you to connect with those parts of the business that show you how to manage your costs and understand the numbers is mission critical. Because you can have the best food on the planet, but if somebody's stealing from you, or you're overpaying for things, or you're not controlling your labor, your doors are going to be closed unless you've got a rich uncle who's funding your operation. So I think looking for those opportunities to extend yourself. There's a saying that I'm familiar with. It says you're often going to find yourself overworked and underpaid because you're taking a little portion of that next job up the rung of the ladder so that you can learn and grow your career. So I encourage you to do that. I mean, find ways for you to add to your portfolio of skills, to your arsenal of experience, so that when those opportunities come along, you're the one that gets tapped on the shoulder to take that next step. So hang in there, roll with the punches, work hard, stay humble, and have fun. Thank you.
Don't give up. Okay, thank you, Craig. So moving on to Mike. So through Ho'okipa Partners, you oversee business development and operations across multiple hospitality segments. What strategies or innovations have you found to be most effective in retaining and attracting talent, especially in such a competitive labor market?
Thank you. So attract and retain. I think I've heard every single person up here, including Michael, talk about those 2 words. That is the key to everything. And I think, everybody, that's the reason you're all in this room. I'm curious, by raise of hands, how many of you work for an organization that is 150 employees or more? Raise your hand. Okay, it looks like more than half, almost. How about less than 150 employees? Okay? So the main thing is we're all in the same boat, right? Whether you're the Sheraton, you're Marriott, or you're a mom and pop, one restaurant operation or a boutique hotel. Everybody, we're all in the same boat. Staffing is mission impossible, right? And so I think attracting the right talent and making sure there's a pool, which we already spoke about, and making sure those future generations are interested in the industry, excited about it, that we're representing it well. So how do you attract them? Well, one thing I've learned in my career is company culture, the culture you have, whether it's one restaurant or you've got 150 hotels, that culture is what is going to attract people. We all know pay isn't number one. It's the full compensation package, but culture is paramount, especially when it comes to the retention of employees. And it doesn't matter. I think if you're a big 150 plus employees, you got an HR department that is probably working really hard to create a company culture, even people that are full-time salaried people creating a program to attract and retain, keep employees happy. But even if you're a small organization without that infrastructure or a huge HR department to help you with that, you still have the same challenge. And for those of you, I say, the leaders in your organization, the managers, it starts with them. Okay, they have to have people skills, and if they don't, you better darn well make sure somebody on your leadership team has those skills to interact with the staff and make them enjoy coming to work every day. Because, you know, like we said, we got the fires, people don't show up. That's across the board for everybody. You know, every day you don't walk into a perfect environment, everything goes as you plan. So you want people on that team that are gonna be through it, be your ride or die, no matter what. And what's gonna keep them happy, it's that company culture, it's that, you know, that leadership you have and saying, hey, you know, I'm gonna give you a free employee meal today, thanks for working in a couple extra hours, whatever it may be. And it's little things go a long way. That being said, there is no magic recipe, because I tell everybody in Hawaii, the labor market is competitive. In Oahu, Honolulu, even more competitive. In Waikiki, really competitive. Outer Islands, God bless you guys. that is really challenging. But we're all in the same boat. So what can you do to counter that? And I think making sure you have the right leadership, and then creating a culture which doesn't have to, you know, have all these bells and whistles, but it just starts with small stuff. Just writing a thank you card to your staff. And I think flexibility is huge with the younger generations, letting them know. Like, one thing I say, I think blackout periods are ridiculous. You know, why have a blackout period for taking time off? We got people have families on the mainland that aren't born and raised in Hawaii. But guess what? We got people that were born and raised in Hawaii. They're gonna be here and they're off school during Christmas or holidays, and they wanna work. So I always say, hey, if we can make it happen, we'll let you have the time off. You know, but if we can't, we got a business to run, so we'll play it by ear. If you only have 3 people that want to take off during that time, let them go. If you got 20, you got to make some tough decisions. They can't all go, you know. So I think it's little things like that. But again, your leadership, and then the company culture you have, and then I'd say third is the complete benefits package.
Feast, Dish and Dialogue is presented by the Hawaii Ag and Culinary Alliance, the nonprofit organization behind the Hawaii Food and Wine Festival. Founded to strengthen Hawaii's culinary and agricultural industries, HACA connects world-class culinary events with year-round investment in education, workforce development, and local agriculture. Through programs that support students, entrepreneurs, farmers, and hospitality professionals, HACA works to ensure Hawaii's food and hospitality ecosystem continues to grow, innovate, and thrive.
So I'm going to go slightly off script for 1 second. So all of you are very established and successful and have been in this industry or profession for decades. What is it that keeps you motivated to really keep going and to focus on the next generation? Like, what do you want your legacy to be, and why do you want people to get involved?
Mine's easy. It's the students, right? The ability to shape and elevate someone in front of you who wants something for themselves and their family, and potentially to transform not just their life trajectory, but generations of people. I mean, that really is the American dream. It's the kind of thing that we all should be able to gather around and support. And yeah, whenever on the hard days, that's what I remember.
I love it. How about you, Kelly?
Yeah, mine's easy too. I would say you never quit your family. And in hospitality, we build families. And we are super connected. And we want to live and die and drive hard together from morning till night to drive success. And so you just keep going.
I love it. Craig?
I agree. I think for me, it's helping people reach their potential. You know, somebody took a chance on me one day, and probably somebody took a chance on all of us in here. It's one of those human truths, you know, being in control, being understood, belonging. You know, most people generally want to be at their best. They want to strive for something great, and to have a role in that, and to be able to, you know, contribute to helping somebody, you know, achieve greatness in their own way. is really, really rewarding. And then in our business, ultimately that results in a happy guest, and that's what drives, us all coming to work every day. So,
Yep.
anyway, thank you.
All right, Mike.
It's a labor of love. I think for most people, it's not just a means to an end. And it's crazy because we definitely take our beatings in this industry on the daily. But I think it's the successes and the rewards, the sense of community, what everybody talked about. A lot of people, it's their home away from home. And then ultimately the guests that are always looking for somewhere to go to celebrate a birthday, to celebrate an anniversary. There's so much revolves around food and beverage. You rarely hear about get-togethers where it's not involved. It's a social thing, and it's amazing. Like when you think about our industry, and in a prior life, I would tell people we had a restaurant that a lot of people celebrated birthdays and anniversaries at, and then the team meetings, pre-shifts, I'd say, how special is it that these families decided to spend the most special day of their year with us, on their birthday or on their anniversary? And then here in Waikiki, you got people on family vacations, honeymoons, you name it. And they want a great meal, great view, great service. And we're all obligated to figure out how to provide that to them. So it's a big responsibility, but I think it's also what makes it exciting. I think it's why a lot of people get in the industry. I think some people start because it is for a paycheck, and then they develop a love for it, whether it's on the culinary side or on the leadership side. But yeah, it's been a minute, and I still enjoy it, and I tell everybody my favorite place is to be out on the floor interacting with the team and the guests, although I can't always spend my time doing that. So.
No, I think that's one of the most special things about this profession is how much everyone cares and how it is just a big family. And I've been with Ment'or for 12 years, and I often talk about everyone who I work with, whether it's a young chef or some of the esteemed chefs, but I call them all my children because it really is a family. And I think to be a part of all these special moments, like all of you do so much and impact so many lives that you may not realize it, but you really do. So like kudos to everyone for all that you do if you're in this profession, because it really is a rewarding profession and unlike any other one out there. So I think I applaud all of you for everything that you've done and continue to inspire the next generation.
If today's conversation inspires you, we invite you to experience it in person at the Feast Summit, returning Thursday, November 5th, 2026 in Honolulu during the 16th Annual Hawaii Food and Wine Festival. Mark your calendars, tickets go on sale this May. Learn more at hawaiifoodandwinefestival.com.
So I want to open it up for some questions. There are 2 mics. If you want to go to the microphone and just state your name, your affiliation, and then your question, and I'm going to invite Michael to come join the panel.
Hi, just to set the context, I'm Dave Evans. I am a professor and department chair over the Hospitality and Tourism Education Department at Kapi'olani Community College. I've got several of my bosses here today, so this question relates to them. Earlier, Michael, you mentioned that future employers are going to be looking for competencies rather than degrees. So I'd like to throw this question out to everybody on the panel, starting with President Hensel, who we are in the business of providing degrees. Where do we come in with that as far as we make that shift? And then for the other gentleman, I'd like to ask them that same question, because many of you have historically hired our graduates looking specifically at our degrees and looking for them to go on for future degrees. So I kind of want to get your impressions of that shift that'll be going on. So if I can start with President Hensel.
Yeah, so I think it depends on the industry that you're talking about, right? I mean, obviously, there is a shift to provide whatever level of education is needed in the format that's needed at the moment that it's needed. That's the shift that's happening. Talk a lot about, we started as an agrarian society, so we have 3 times that you can start at a formal university. That's crazy. That's not how things work anymore, and we need to get on top of those kind of trends And frankly, universities are organizations that don't move very quickly. And so that's the struggle for us. Do I think degrees become irrelevant? Absolutely not. I think we are training people to learn how to learn over the course of their lifespan. You know, as we become more and more talking about the least common denominator through AI, that you don't need depth of understanding and you don't need, what you do need more than ever will be critical thinking skills that allow you to skeptically encounter data and information that is generated at a pace that is overwhelming. And we're sitting in that kind of moment right now, and we're just at the cusp of it. So it will accelerate. So, you know, where do I think it needs to evolve? Absolutely. And we are talking about stackable credentials and skills building into, you know, non-credit, into credit, into associates, bachelors, et cetera. And I think all different organizations have a role to play in that. But overwhelmingly, the two things we need to do is give you a love of learning that lasts a lifetime, because you will be doing work that we don't even know how to train you for outside in teaching you how to learn. And so that will be the piece. The other response, I think, to that trend that I've been talking a lot about recently is I think we need to move toward a stronger apprenticeship and internship model across all of our degree programs. You know, and you can see the mental health issues, just aside from the competency issues. Young people are disconnected from place, from people, living in a virtual world. And our ability to sort of shift through this moment of such incredible change and ground them in place really lies in that internship and apprenticeship. So I'd love to speak with the rest of the folks up here as we're just getting, you know, we've been doing that work, but not in a way that was holistically driven across the board. And if there was ever a place to do that type of work where we can help you and you can help our talent pool, it has to be Hawaii for food and beverage. So that's something that I think we'll be talking about.
All in.
Love it.
Amen.
Yeah, your comment about internships, I think, is spot on. You know, turnover is really difficult for an organization. You hire people with you know, optimism, thinking you found the right person, and a couple months in, they realize that this isn't for them. And that's really frustrating because it's a stop, start. So to the extent that people can come in and test drive it and realize that this is the industry for me, is huge. The other thing I would say is, like, there's CEOs and CIOs, and what we need is FIOs. We need figure-it-outers. We need people who can troubleshoot and problem solve and come into an organization and make a contribution and think for themselves. So that critical thinking, I think, is really important. Just to shift quickly, I don't know how many of you know of the organization Climb High and Julie Morikawa, but she does amazing work in reaching into the secondary schools to help that population connect with our industry and other industries, so that they have a chance to kind of touch it, feel it, see what it's all about, and potentially connect with us on future opportunities. But they're doing great work in addition to all the work you're doing. So, thank you.
Mike? Nothing else said.
You know, when I think it's a little of both. If we see a resume that has, you know, the CIA graduate or the TIM school from UH, it's a beautiful thing to see on a resume. But I think for some people that is a make or break, you know. But I'll tell you, I'll also take somebody that worked, you know, for Alan Wong and Roy Yamaguchi and Peter Merriman, and that's on their resume, and no, you know, formal culinary training. That's priceless training right there. So I think it really depends on the individual, but I don't think it's going away. I mean, it's changing, as Michael said. I think it's great that, you know, people are going to go and pursue those degrees, and I think it's absolutely great, and I think they should continue to do that. But we can't disregard the people that start as a busboy or washing dishes and work their way up. To me, it really depends on the combination of what's on that resume. So, and with AI and online learning now, it's a constantly evolving, you know, landscape. So, you know, but, you know, God bless it. The education, higher education, I think is great. And it teaches you, you know, skills that you might not learn, even if you're working for great individuals and great organizations. So I think it really depends. And like you said, it is a revolving door. That's one thing I didn't say, is I always tell people staffing is a revolving door, but the key is figuring out how much you can slow down that revolving door. That's the key.
Michael, do you want to close out the question?
To me, it's a both and. There will be always a need for degrees for starters. And I think as an education, learning, and development organization, we have to evolve our products, as we've done over many, many decades as well, because what we do today is not what we did 60 years ago. The other one, I think we probably have to evolve our narrative, because to me, like, working in food and beverage is extraordinarily rewarding, not just when you're in it, but you learn lifelong skills that are applicable for so many different industries. Because when you work in F&B, you are a great firefighter. You ultimately learn how to deal with all kinds of individuals. And therefore, even if the F&B industry is not your lifelong destination, spending time in it early on is ultimately a life changer.
And you'll never go hungry.
Good bonus. Any other questions?
Hi, my name's Tom Pastor. I actually came here from Alaska. I'm the Director of Food and Nutrition for the Alaska Native Tribal Health Consortium. I had a completely different question in mind, but what I started to think about was you've talked a lot about new graduates or new people to the industry. I wonder about succession planning. Do you have a more adaptive approach to succession planning now? Because I've been a leader of leaders for some years now, and what's always interesting to me is the person that leaves the team, or people that I make available to the market, as I've recently learned, when they don't have somebody ready to take the reins behind them, I consider it a failure. So what do you have, how do you approach succession planning now with more of an adaptive look?
I'll start. I think it's super critical that we understand what the three questions that we're talking to every one of our leaders about. What is the now, and what is the next, and then how do we get there? So that we're constantly working to make sure you have that person ready for when that position comes available, or the opportunity of scalable growth is also a big challenge. As you know, we took over 7 hotels in the last 10 months, and like scaling that many hotels in that short a time and trying to find the right talent at every single level is very difficult. So it's constantly working to make sure your team and your talent pool is always evolving and training and learning.
Yeah, I totally agree. Kelly and I worked together for the same company at one point, and we were fortunate that that company invested a lot, and there was a lot of corporate-driven training, and I think both of our organizations continue that culture. You know, our monthly staff meetings are a learning opportunity for the managers. It's not a around the room, give us an update that I can read in the daily buzz. It's having them leave the room with a skill set that they didn't have when they walked in. So we're continuously investing in their growth so that when those opportunities come along, they're ready for it. So it's a daily, ongoing, never-ending process. But it's a really good point. It's an issue for all of us as people. What did you say? When you've offered them up to the market or something? Yeah, that's a great way to look at it. It helps me feel better about it the next time someone leaves. Yeah,
if I
good
can
question.
add one
Thank you.
thing, just specifically, I know it's a different industry, but in my performance reviews, I will always ask people who they've identified as their successor. And what did you do to help prepare that person in the event that they step up? Not as that is the person who it will be, but to constantly remind people who are under you that that is part of their job to train that next generation. So that can be a good reminder.
I'll add 2 more elements to it as well. So what I look for is leaders who are well connected in the broader industry, because some of your successes will come from outside of your own company. So are you networking, and do you have people in mind? And I think, and I lost my second point. Oh, we'll come back to it.
Yeah, and just back to that, going back to our common background and probably continuing practice, Annually, we ask people when they get their performance appraisal what they want to be when they grow up. And we do a comprehensive talent review meeting with our senior executives where we list all of our managers, what's their next role, and who's their potential backfill. So we've got that documented, and if there are holes in that spreadsheet, then we've got to go out to Michael's point in the market and try to find out who can I steal from Alohalani to fill that role.
Sorry, Marriott.
Okay, the last one I remember my point again is that if you become a talent developer and you spit many people out to the broader industry, top talent will find you because they know when they join your organization, they might be with you for a period of time, but they will see an acceleration of their growth as well. So it's a shift in your mindset. It's almost like the more people you develop, the more talent will find you as well.
That's a really good point.
Great.
Such a coming full circle. As I ran this hotel here, Sheraton, for 13 years, and I moved to Hawaii to push this hotel through a $220 million renovation. But during that time, we created new outlets like Rumfire and Kai Market and The Edge. And Danielle Delbrel, the executive chef here, was, in my opinion, one of the best at finding young culinary talent, giving them an opportunity to test and drive, and nicest chef in the whole wide world. I don't think I've ever heard him yell. But he has created some of the most amazing talent in Hawaii through his tenure and the work that he's done here. So I just want to say, miss you, Danielle, who's retired, but I saw him last night at Hawaii Food and Wine. So.
Do we have time for one last question? I know somebody wanted to ask a question in the back. Okay.
Aloha kako, Grace Bazilla, educator. My question, first of all, I want to thank all of you for what you do in your respective industries and working with the younger generation and making those bridges and working with our younger workforce. And I really want to appreciate the story of the young man who talked about his childhood on Aina with his ohana, right? And my question revolves more with that, I think, because I'm hearing secondary education as well as high school, and if we're looking at that, that's like 14 years. So my question is, are your respective industries pouring into the next generation? Like, are we thinking birth through that gap? Because I really believe that if you're gonna start in high school, which is better than later, you're missing that many years of putting real taste for food, especially here in Hawaii. When we look at, tomorrow, what's gonna happen in Hawaii, and the already gravity that hits children 0 to 14 in Hawaii, I don't know what percentage of those people know what kalo tastes like. I don't know what percentage of those people know what ulu tastes like. I don't know how many of those people have eaten from Aina. I can almost guarantee everyone's had a spam musubi and a cup of noodle. But other than that, I don't really know. And I believe that if we are preparing for the next generation of culinary and hospitality professionals, that we want these children to have that ono, to have that taste, that vibrancy of what Hawaii is from a very young age, so that when they do have the opportunity to learn how to work with these ingredients, they already know how it tastes. And they know the difference between kalo grown in Hawaii and kalo grown out of Hawaii and what that tastes like. They know what ulu that is already at its peak stage tastes like. They love ulu because it's not ulu that's been harvested before its maturity. They understand the texture that ulu has. And so my question, and maybe my ask for the future, is that we collectively find ways to pour more into the younger children, right? Find ways to change food in school, and to make it where it's not just on the plate. You know, they have poi in schools now, that's great. And it goes to waste because the keiki don't know how to eat poi, right? So find ways so that they can be on aina in their mouth, you know, have that in their gut biome, so that by the time they're in the kitchen, it's not, what is this? Or, you know, how do I work with kale? I know how to work with kale. No, here's ho'i'o. Do you know how to work with ho'i'o? What is that? You know, how do we create the vibrancy that is Hawaii within our Hawaiian population here so that we can deliver this destination, you know, culinary arts that we want to say that we have. I feel like we can start earlier. And I feel like you folks are the people that can do that. And I'd love to hear if that is happening and or how it could happen.
Okay, so great question, big question. Who wants to take this on? Mike.
Well, sorry, I'll be quick, but thank you for bringing that up. I think it's great. I think it's a great aspiration that, you know, we could have our keiki learn at, you know, the earliest age possible. And I think it obviously, you know, we're not up here to do parenting coaching, but I know at least at my house that the dinner table is a sacred place that unfortunately I think a lot, you know, younger generations, we've lost that. You know, you can blame it on a number of things, but you know, I believe, you know, eating dinner together as a family is absolutely critical in child development. You know, with the TV off, devices off, have a conversation about the day, about what you're eating, the ingredients, where it came from. I think that's a beautiful thing. So if we could get parents to agree on that, that would be one. I think taking it the next level to the school system, you know, it's great, you know, like I said, with Pro Start high schools, doing that, taking it to elementary schools is what I'm hearing you say, is it's definitely an uphill battle, and it's something I think, you know, as an industry, it is something we should promote, you know, improving school lunches, you know, improving the health of school lunches. And, you know, there's all kinds of things that impact that, you know, financial challenges and whatnot. But starting there, you know, and having conversations about it and not ignoring it, I think is huge. So thank you for bringing that up. I think that's a great point you made.
Yeah, thank you. Wherever you are, there you are. We got connected with an organization called Charlie Cart, and they make these portable kitchens that are self-contained. That comes with a recipe book, and they are in I think they're in about 600 elementary schools around the country, and it basically is a hands-on learning experience for young children, where they can touch and feel, they can taste the difference between a Granny Smith apple and a Red Delicious apple, and learn about apples. And at the same time, it's introducing a nutrition component to their early development. And by being hands-on, they also learn a little bit about how to find their way around the kitchen, and might find that it's a passion of theirs. I'd be happy to connect with you after the session and give you some information. So, thanks.
Well, I think our time is up, or we've actually gone over time, but I want to take a moment to thank our entire panel. So Mike, Craig, Kelly, Wendy, and of course Michael from the CIA. Let's give them a big round of applause.
Mahalo for listening to Feast, Dish, and Dialogue. If you enjoyed this conversation, subscribe and share it with someone passionate about food, agriculture, and hospitality. To learn more about the Feast Summit and the Hawaii Food and Wine Festival, visit hawaiifoodandwinefestival.com. Be sure to join us for the next episode of Feast, Dish, and Dialogue.